Hi, boys and girls. Another fun science fact, and this one is, what do you hear when you hold a seashell to your ear? I know boys and girls have done that before, right? Hold a seashell to your ear. So let's read and find out. What do you hear when you hold a seashell to your ear? Hold a seashell to your ear. What do you hear? The ocean? The wind? It may sound like wind or waves, but what you are really hearing are faint sounds which are always around us but are too soft for us to hear. The seashell acts as a resonator, something that makes noises echo back and forth. This is mostly because the shell's shape and smooth inner surface. When you hold the shell to your ear, it makes these very faint everyday sounds louder so that you can hear them. If you were to hold a seashell to your ear in a soundproof room, you wouldn't hear anything because there would be no noises for the shell to pick up. So that brings us to, how do we hear sounds? When you throw a stone into a pond, water ripples outwards. When you speak, your voice acts on the air like the stone in the water. It causes a ripple effect that spreads outward. These ripples pass through the ear and bump against a piece of tightly stretched skin just inside the ear called the eardrum. The vibrations then bump along the little bones inside the ear and send messages to the brain, which turns them into the sounds you can hear. The ripples from low sounds travel further than those from high sounds. When thunder is close by, you hear the high sounds, which are rather like the crack of a whip. When the thunder is far away, you hear only the low rumbles that travel a long way. Did you know the squeaks that bats make are so high-pitched that humans cannot hear it? Hello, hello, hello. That sounds like an echo. But what causes echoes? A long time ago, people thought that echoes were little fairies that lived in caves and valleys. The fairies would shout back whatever someone yelled at them. No one really knew what an echo was until we discovered that sound travels through the air in waves. When a wave of water is stopped by a cliff, it is broken into a spray and thrown back into the sea. When sound waves are stopped by a wall, they're thrown back to our ears. Like the wave of water, the sound is shattered and comes back sounding faint and airy. It almost does sound like a little fairy calling back to us. So you try that, boys and girls, sometimes. You can make an echo sound with your voice. Here's another fun fact. Why do socks get lost in the dryer? Let's find out. Fabric contains tiny particles called electrons. When clothes rub against each other for a while, some of these electrons are pulled into a special pattern. When they all line up in a certain way, they have an electrical charge, something like a magnet. This is called static electricity. In a clothes dryer, clothes rub together as they twirl around. Static electricity builds up between them. Small items such as socks are attracted by this electrical force. They cling to other items where you may not notice them. So check the dry laundry carefully before you give up on that lost sock. Otherwise, you may go out one day and find your friends laughing at the sock stuck to your sleeve. Well, that's interesting. Let's find another fun fact for boys and girls. Oh, how about this? How is glass made? Can you see like this? Okay. How is glass made? If you have ever made candy, you know that you begin by heating sugar very gently until it melts into a thick, syrupy liquid. You have to heat this syrup to just the right temperature and then cool it quickly. You might pour it into a pan or drop spoonfuls into cold water. The result is hard, clear sugar candy. Glass is made in much the same way. Sand, soda, and a chalky substance called lime are heated until they melt. The mixture is much hotter than the sugar you melt on your stove. Once it reaches the right temperature, it is cooled and shaped. One clever way of cooling and shaping glass is to blow it. Glass blowers dip a hollow stick into the liquid glass and then blow through the stick so the glass inflates like bubble gum. If they blow carefully, they can shape elegant bottles and other objects. Well, and that's how we found out how glass is made. Let's look for another fun fact. How can a magnifying glass make a fire? You know how hot you get when you sit out in the sun? Well, imagine the heat from the sun that was falling on one hand was put together and set on one spot on that same hand. That sure would be hot. It probably would burn your hand. This is what a magnifying glass can do with the sun's rays. A magnifying glass is made of one or two curved pieces of glass. When the light rays of the sun shine onto the glass, the curve of the glass bends them, changing their direction. It directs them all towards one point. All the heat from the light rays will be aimed towards this one spot. If you put a piece of paper at the spot where all the sun's rays are being directed, a lot of heat will hit the paper. The paper will start to burn. Be careful if you try this experiment. Well, that was a very interesting fun fact. Let's keep going. Why do you see yourself in the mirror? A mirror is a smooth surface of glass that is coated on the back with a shiny metal such as silver or aluminum. The metal stops light from going through the glass. When the light hits the glass, it's thrown back or reflected. This is why what you see in a mirror is called a reflection. When you stand in front of a mirror, light from the sun or a lamp reflects off your body, hits the mirror, and is reflected back at you. What you see is kind of light picture or image of yourself, but the image is reversed. That is, your right side and your left side are switched. If you hold a piece of paper with writing on it in front of a mirror, you will see that the letters are backwards. In the same way, your image in the mirror is backwards. So boys and girls, that's a fun thing you can try. Write your name on a piece of paper and hold it up in the mirror and see what happens. Here's another one. Why do ice cubes float in water? This is something you could probably try at home. It's odd. Ice cubes are made from water, so the two ought to have the same weight. If that is the case, why do ice cubes float in water? Ice cubes float because when water freezes, the little bits of water, called molecules, push apart from each other. This means there's more space between the molecules in ice than there is in water. And even though they are made of the same elements, hydrogen and oxygen, this extra space between molecules makes a cube of ice weigh less than a cube of liquid water. Because it's lighter, the ice floats in water. Boys and girls, that's something you can try. Get an ice cube, put it in some water, see what happens. Oh wait, I have some ice cubes right here. Oh, they were on the bottom of my glass, and then I poured my sparkling water on it, and they floated to the top. Miss Joan did an experiment, and I didn't even realize it. I'm going to take a sip. What happens to salt when you put it in water? If you have ever put salt into water, you know that the salt quickly disappears. What happens is that the individual water molecules slip between the solid salt and break it up into tiny pieces. These small pieces fit between the water molecules. Scientists say that the water dissolves the salt. If you boil the salt in water until the water evaporates, the salt will remain at the bottom of the pot. Well, that is very interesting. Boys and girls, these are a lot of fun science facts. Let's see if we have time for one more. Gravity. What is gravity? Gravity is the pull that objects have on the objects around them. All objects have gravity, which means they are all trying to pull objects towards themselves. The largest object on our Earth is the Earth itself. Because the Earth is so large, its gravity has the strongest pull. When an apple falls off a tree, an apple pulls the Earth towards itself, but just a tiny bit, but the Earth pulls the apple much more strongly. Between the two of them, the apple ends up on the ground. Well, boys and girls, that's a lot of fun science facts for today. Bye-bye. See you another time.